Okay, hi, Father Team. So we're going to do an interview of you about JP2 and also about yourself today. And so the first question we want to know is, what's your experience with Catholic faith?
Well, I was raised Catholic. I was born 59 years ago, and I was baptized Catholic. My mom was Catholic growing up, and my dad was Methodist, Protestant growing up. And my mom's family is German. They're from Germany. And so we grew up from the very beginning, because my father became Catholic before he married my mother. We grew up Catholic, baptized and so forth. Then I went to Catholic schools until I graduated from Purdue University.
Okay, so another question we want to ask is, what inspired you about John Paul II?
What I liked about him is that he was very close to people. He was brilliant, intellectually brilliant, but he was able to take very complex philosophical thoughts and break them down so people could understand them. And he was especially successful to do that with young people. But the other thing I really liked about him is he was really human. So when I met him, one of the greatest things that I remember was him singing with us when we were there. So very human, very brilliant, able to explain our faith, but in a way that everybody could understand it.
Okay, so you said you have already met John Paul II before, and is that okay if you tell us one of the experience that you had with him?
Sure, I got to meet him 3 times, and all 3 times I got to offer Mass with him in his little chapel at the Vatican. And I'll tell you 2 little stories. Is that all right?
Okay.
The first story, when I first met him, usually when you say Mass with the Pope, he gives you a present. And so I was in a line of priests, and he came to me, and he had 2 rosaries in his hand, one for me and one for the priest next to me. And when he came to me, I was so nervous, I took both of the rosaries out of his hand, so he didn't have anything to give the priest next to me. And then after I realized that I had just stolen a rosary from the Pope, I was a little bit embarrassed, but he laughed about it. And the second time I met him, the last time I met him, one of the things that I remember really well is that he knew 15 languages. So when he came to meet us in line after we had Mass with him, he started in Spanish with the ambassador from Argentina to the Vatican and his mother. Then he switched to English with us, and then to the people next to us, he switched to Russian and spoke Russian there. And afterwards, we got him to autograph a book, and then I asked him, will you sing with us? And so he sang with us too.
Okay, so we read a book about John Paul II, The 5 Love, and so what's your thought of John Paul II, The 5 Love, and which one inspired you the most?
I think his love for young people, a lot of people say that, because he spent his whole time as Pope teaching young people, and the most important thing he wanted to teach was, what does it mean to be a human person? And he thought, if a young person can understand, or no matter what the age, what does it mean to be fully human, to be made in the image and likeness of God, then a person can figure out how to be happy in this life, how to find love in this life, how to know what their vocation is in this life. And he spent his whole time as Pope teaching people that, young and old, but especially young people, because he saw our society is filled with people who just want to use other people, not treating them like humans, but like an object. So he loved youth a lot.
Thank you. Next question is, how do you think he impacted the church and the world?
Well, for the Catholic Church, John Paul was a person, I think, that God used to renew the church. Before John Paul was elected, there were fewer vocations, there was less public love for the church. I think his influence is that He taught us how to be joyful Catholics again, and then he traveled the whole world. He met everybody. It didn't matter who they were. He wanted to meet everybody, so he went to places that no one else would have gone. Maybe he went to Cuba. He went to Nicaragua at a time Nicaragua was having a tough time, and I think he was a bridge builder between cultures and between people. And I think that's what I think is one of his biggest influences. Taught us who we were, taught us why we were Catholic and how we could be joyful Catholics. And then he tried to bring happiness, joy where he went by telling the truth.
And another question is, so why do you think he is a saint, and what helped him live a holy life?
To be a saint, it means a saint is somebody who is completely, entirely head over heels in love with God. And you could just see that the way he treated other people. So he didn't just talk about God. It's easy to talk about God, but he treated people with joy, with dignity. He reached out to everybody. I think that's what showed his great love for God. Now the other part of it, the second part of that question, what helped him to become a saint? I think part of it was that his father formed him very well, and the culture he lived in formed him very well to trust God in good times and in bad times, and formed him also, I think, to not be embarrassed to show what he believed, what he felt, the way he lived. And I think living that way helped him to become a saint.
Okay, so another question is, in the book we read that he talked about a lot about love and marriage and sex between couples. So do you have any advice for us as teenagers, will be in college later, and also about our future, about that part, marriage, love, or something like that?
I mean, I think the thing to remember is, I'm trying to think of, when you say advice to a high schooler, that's a good question. The best thing is this, and we can learn from John Paul. John Paul said, as human beings, as human persons, whenever we feel something, we have the ability to step back and say, why do I feel what I feel? What is it? He said, love and sex come also with responsibility because I'm a human person. How do I know I'm not using that other person? How do I know that I'm living in such a human way so I'm fulfilling the way I've been created? I'm living in such a way that I can be joyful. So I think to step back and to say, why do I feel what I feel? If I know I've been created for love, if I know my life will be senseless to me unless I find love, have I separated love from who I am as a human? In other words, if I'm entering a sexual relationship with somebody, is it because I'm in love with them and I spend the rest of my life in that covenant? Or is it because I have an urge, a need, a feeling, which is different from love, which is a commitment that comes with a responsibility? True love will always mean self-donation, donating myself, looking for communion with the other person, whether I'm a married man, married woman, unmarried woman, priest, sister. How do I live in self-donation, looking for communion with the other person? That's true love. And that's true sex, and that's true marriage, and that's true whatever vocation. Amen.
Thank you for the team for today's interview, and do you have any final comment about this?
Well, I would just say this. I'm going to assume that your class is going to see this. Do you think maybe your parents may even see this back in China someday? So the big question is, can Troy and Ian become saints like St. John Paul II? I would say yes. Now, can Let's see. Mr. Wagner become a saint? Yes. Sister Mary John? Yes, she'll have to work at it very hard, but the answer is yes, even for Sister Mary John. Sister, I'm just kidding. Don't hold it against me. Bye, everybody.